asked Robin to join me because we need to warn people about some fake divorce stories that are popping up everywhere right now.
After years of presenting himself as a rock-solid figure of guidance and steadfast relationship advice on daytime television, Dr. Phil McGraw shocked the public when news broke that he had divorced his wife of nearly 5 decades, Robin McGraw. The announcement was not just startling because of the length of their marriage, but because of the way their partnership had been woven into the very fabric of his public persona. The image of Dr. Phil and Robin as a unified force, emotionally intimate, mutually supportive, and inseparable in both life and business, was as much a part of his brand as his southern drawl and tough love approach to therapy. Before we start, hit the like and subscribe buttons for more exclusive news. Viewers had watched for decades as Robin sat in the audience during tapings of the Dr. Phil show, always smiling, always composed, often referenced with fondness by Phil himself. Her presence was both symbolic and strategic. She wasn't just a spouse. She was an emblem of the success that his relationship philosophies could produce. For a man who made a career out of diagnosing the dysfunctions in other people's relationships, his own long-lasting marriage had been his most enduring credential. And so, when the divorce came to light, it did not arrive quietly. It landed with a thunderous weight, tearing a hole in the narrative that had been carefully curated over decades. What made the revelation even more compelling was the manner in which it unfolded. There was no gradual drift noticed by the public, no years of rumors or tension caught in paparazzi snapshots. On the contrary, their relationship always seemed, at least outwardly, to be an example of deep understanding and loyalty. That made the suddenness of the divorce announcement all the more jarring. Dr. Phil, the master of anticipating human behavior and deciphering emotional patterns, had kept his private strife impeccably hidden from public view, until the moment it could no longer be contained. The implications of the split stretched far beyond the emotional unraveling of a long-term marriage. It stirred a deep sense of skepticism in viewers and fans who had taken his guidance to heart. If even Dr. Phil, with his years of expertise and insights into human relationships, couldn't maintain his own marriage, then what did that say about the nature of love, compatibility, and resilience? The emotional gravity of the divorce rippled through social media platforms, news outlets, and private conversations alike. People weren't just surprised, they were disillusioned. The sense of betrayal wasn't merely personal, it was philosophical. Dr. Phil had built his television empire on the premise that problems could be confronted, communicated, and corrected. His direct approach to therapy and relationships emphasized responsibility, self-awareness, and practical solutions. He had coached countless couples through infidelity, communication breakdowns, trust issues, and years of emotional stagnation. His advice always seemed to come from a place of not just academic authority, but lived experience. Now the validity of that experience was under a new harsh spotlight. It was not simply that his marriage had ended, but that it had ended without any outward signs of the disintegration. For many, this made them question how much of the public image had been real. Had the seemingly perfect marriage been a facade held together for the sake of ratings and relatability? Had there been private struggles long masked by public smiles and rehearsed camaraderie? The silence around the details only added to the speculation. The statement was clinical, almost sterile in its delivery, a quiet end to what had been a very loud and visible union. Dr. Phil's divorce invited a broader conversation about the reality behind public figures' personal lives. It raised a mirror to the entertainment industry's expectation that celebrities, especially those dispensing advice, maintain a personal life that reflects their professional ideals. In a way, he was not allowed to fail, not just because he was a celebrity, but because he was a therapist. The idea that someone whose job was to fix others could not fix his own relationship created a strange paradox. The audience demanded perfection, not only in his words, but in his world. The psychological burden of living up to that expectation may have contributed to the very fracture that ended the marriage. Being under constant scrutiny can alter the dynamics of even the healthiest relationships. A couple can begin to perform their love rather than experience it authentically. Every decision, every disagreement becomes charged with the weight of potential public fallout. For Dr. Phil and Robin, who operated not only as partners in life but in branding and business, the lines between genuine affection and professional alliance may have slowly eroded. Their relationship had long been an extension of the Dr. Phil brand. From books and interviews to joint appearances and ventures, their union was an asset, a model marriage, visually harmonious and emotionally synchronized. But as with any brand, the truth is often more complex than the image presented. Behind closed doors, decades of companionship can accumulate quiet discontents. Resentments don't always explode. Sometimes they calcify into distance. One can only imagine the weight of maintaining a polished exterior while internal cracks begin to deepen. What remained particularly fascinating was the timing. The divorce came at a period when Dr. Phil was shifting away from the intense spotlight of his daily show, having announced its conclusion after 21 seasons. Without the obligation of daily appearances and the pressure of a consistent image to maintain, perhaps he finally found the space to confront his own reality. When a career is defined by helping others confront their truths, facing one's own can be an uncomfortable process, delayed, dismissed, or postponed until the infrastructure that supported it begins to shift. Divorces, especially those that occur after decades together, do not happen in a vacuum. They are rarely triggered by a single event. More often, they are the result of a slow accumulation of unmet needs, unspoken thoughts, and misaligned priorities. With Dr. Phil and Robin, the assumption had always been that they were in sync. But long marriages sometimes become partnerships of habit rather than intimacy. The routines and roles harden into something that resembles companionship, but lacks the dynamic engagement that keeps love alive. Over time, that gap becomes harder to ignore. In their case, the lines between love and loyalty may have blurred. There is a certain kind of love that emerges from shared history and mutual respect, but it's not necessarily the kind that sparks joy or emotional vibrancy. They had weathered life's storms together: children, fame, professional transitions, public scrutiny. But surviving together is not the same as thriving together. Somewhere along the way, the emotional currents that once connected them might have drifted out of sync. For decades, Robin had been portrayed as the ever-supportive spouse, always present, always elegant, always composed. But support is a role, a generous one, but still a role. And roles, when played too long, can become cages. It's not inconceivable that her identity was gradually consumed by being Dr. Phil's wife, rather than a dynamic person with her own shifting needs, dreams, and direction. As society has evolved in its understanding of female agency and fulfillment, perhaps the dynamic between them no longer reflected the reality they both wanted to live. On Dr. Phil's side, the expectations placed upon him as a husband, brand, and emotional expert may have created a space where vulnerability became too risky. When a man is constantly tasked with being the solution, it can become difficult to admit that he is part of the problem. Pride, pressure, and the fear of public scrutiny can create a dynamic where necessary conversations are avoided in favor of appearances. But authenticity demands risk, and sometimes that risk leads to rupture. The end of their marriage also prompted introspection within the world of daytime television and pop psychology. It forced audiences to reconsider the difference between performative intimacy and genuine connection. When cameras are always watching, when millions are listening, how much of a relationship is curated for public approval? The question lingers: was their bond always as seamless as it appeared? Or had they mastered the art of coexistence under the bright lights of expectation? The emotional weight of divorcing someone after such a significant portion of life together cannot be overstated. This wasn't a relationship of convenience or whim. It was nearly 50 years of shared experiences, private jokes, arguments, reconciliations, traditions, and dreams. Walking away from that requires not just courage, but an emotional reckoning, a willingness to grieve the future once imagined. That grief, though largely unseen by the public, must have been seismic for both of them. The announcement, although devoid of explosive accusations or scandalous drama, was impactful precisely because of its restraint. The lack of public mudslinging or detailed explanation left a vacuum that was filled with interpretation. People projected their own fears, questions, and theories onto the event. It became a cultural moment not just about one couple's divorce, but about the fragility of relationships in the face of time, fame, and unrelenting public scrutiny. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, could you leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on Dr. Phil divorcing Robin? Did you see this coming? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.